Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the Newgen Software Technologies Limited Q3 Results Conference Call hosted by ICICI Securities Limited. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then zero on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Mr. Hardik Sangani of ICICI Securities Limited. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Hi, thank you, Aisha. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Q3 FY21 results of Newgen Software Technologies Limited. I hope everyone is keeping safe. Connecting with me today from the management side is Mr. Diwakar Nigam, Chairman and Managing Director, Mr. Vardarajan, Full-Time Director, Mr. Virender G, Senior VP Sales, Marketing and Products, Mr. Arun Kumar Gupta, Chief Financial Officer, and Ms. Dipti Mehra Chugh, Head Investor Relations. I now hand over the call to Dipti for further proceedings. Thank you, and over to Dipti.
Thank you, Hardik. Before we move on to the discussion, let me highlight that this call may contain certain forward-looking statements concerning Newgen's future business prospects and prosperity, which are subject to a number of risks and uncertainties, and the actual results could materially vary from the forward-looking statements. Past performance may not be indicative of future performance. The company does not undertake to make any announcement in case any of these
Sorry to interrupt. Deepti, I would request you to come a little closer to the phone. You're sounding too distant.
Sorry. Just give me a second.
Sure.
The past performance may not be indicative of future performance for the company, and the company does not undertake to make any announcement in case of any of these forward-looking statements become materially incorrect in future, or update any forward-looking statements made from time to time on behalf of the company. For any further information, you may please refer to the investor relations section of the website. I welcome you all to the Q3 results. I'll now hand over to Mr. Nigam for presentation of the results. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us at our Q3 FY 2021 post-result conference call. First of all, a very happy New Year to you and your families. We are happy to announce another robust performance in this quarter. Despite COVID, we have maintained a business momentum over the last 9 months. We have risen up to the challenge and emerged much stronger due to our speed of adaptability. In Q3, our revenues from operations were 185 crore. We have witnessed a balanced growth across most of our key geographies, including the US, APAC, and India. We are happy with our customers' expanded use of our platform and increased revenue from our existing customers. They still have major strategic digital transformation needs that we can help them with. Increased utilization of our technology in the install base will lead to an increase in license revenues and subsequent ATS AMC revenues for coming quarters. During Q3, we received 2 large digital transformation deals from our existing customers, a leading private sector bank in India and a prominent small finance bank. We made 11 new customer additions during the quarter, with 4 new logos in the Americas region in the banking and financial services domain. We have also had a strategic win for delivery and implementation of our ECM and BPM product for a unit of Government of India. In the UK market, we are executing a mid-sized project for a full-service retail bank, SME bank. Our annuity revenues remain consistent contributing to 60% of our revenues. In 9 months, FY21, ATS revenues witnessed a growth of 20%, while SaaS cloud revenue substantially at the rate of 29% YOY. However, our support services revenue have been impacted due to the shift from on-site model to offshore model. In terms of verticals, banking and financial services, government and PSU, and insurance segments were the key drivers during the quarter, with growth of 7%, 25%, and 45% respectively. There is an increased demand for digitization and digital transformation initiatives in these sectors. Our EBITDA was up 80% and reached rupees 67 crore, and our profit after tax was up by 49% at 36 crores. For the fiscal year, cumulative 9 months, our revenues were 472 crores. EBITDA was up by 135% at rupees 124 crore. Profit after tax was up 137% at the rupees 74 crore. Operating cash flow grew significantly, driven by our consistent focus on liquidity, cash management, and strong collections. Our net cash from operating activities was at rupees 167 crore during the period compared to rupees 44 crores last year. During Q3, the company also decided to move into Vivad Se Vishwas scheme with respect to partial disallowance on foreign withholding tax credit. This was on account of the difference in methodology of withholding tax deductions across various countries. Calculation of withholding tax deduction in foreign locations are based on sales, and exemption allowed under income tax in India is based on profit from these locations. Hence, tax expense in the financial results include rupees 14.6 crore with respect to tax provision. As we continue to work on our debtor days, our net trade receivables as on December 31, 2020 are 174 crores, which resulted in net DSO of 96 days, a great improvement from previous quarters and years. Our margin profile has expanded substantially compared to last year due to rationalized operational manpower and sales. We have also optimized our execution capabilities while continuing with long-term investments in R&D and sales. Currently, R&D expense comprise about 10% of sales. Seeing growth potential in the coming times, we will continue to increase our efforts and investment in this direction. Based on our previous R&D effort, we have been granted another patent in India for an invention titled Remote Email Access to Short Message Service. In addition, Newgen was positioned as a visionary in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for Content Services Platform. Newgen platform connects content and processes with context and allows for automation with agility. We continue to build upon our capability in cloud, low-code, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. All our implementation, both on cloud and on premise, continue to be executed remotely. In the last few months, our product team has worked really hard to deliver several enhancements to support remote implementation. Many of those were on cloud, including DevOps, containerization for efficient cloud deployment, enhanced user interface, better mechanism for comprehensive testing, new record management system to scale for countrywide archives. Our partnership strategy with GSIs, the global system integrators, is gaining momentum. Major GSIs have shown interest in promoting the platform to Fortune 2000 organizations. We are looking at expanding our sales presence in developed markets of US, Europe, and ANZ through these GSIs. 2021 brings a new ray of hope for people, economies, and business. We have a strong outlook as we get closer to the next financial year. We see a good demand environment across all key industry segments. Back in 1995, we had coined the phrase, one word, one workplace. Probably we were ahead of our times then. Today, everyone has lived this expression. This philosophy is reflected in our platform and facilities that facilitates remote working. There are hundreds of thousands of users today using our platform and application running on it. Our platform is scalable and reliable and is extremely relevant for clients in their digital transformation journey. This provides us with a great opportunity in the new normal. To strengthen our GTM initiatives, we have onboarded 3 senior leaders in sales, product development, and human resources. They bring a wealth of industry experience for many prestigious organizations across the world. Their leadership will infuse new ideas and energy. With a stronger balance sheet and cash position, we are now ready to make deep investments on various fronts across technology, sales, and marketing for long-term growth. This would involve further strengthening our international teams, especially the US team for sales and marketing, product management, and delivery capabilities. While we intend to keep an aggressive focus on direct sales and implementations, as we strengthen our partnership with the GSI, we would continue to deliver superior value to our customers and partners through our cutting-edge products, excellent support, and lower cost of ownership. We believe we are well poised for the future. We have the financial resources, a great product, and a motivated, experienced team to capitalize on the opportunity. We are now open for Q&A.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. The first question is from the line of Hardik Sangani from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead. The first question is from the line of Hardik Sangani from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, hi again. Sir, just a couple of questions. Sir, just pertaining to this quarter, firstly, what would be the puts and takes of the margin performance which we had in this quarter? As we have a meaningful improvement, and are there any one-offs which would be there? Secondly, as Mr. Nigam alluded, several of our peers also have alluded that growth is back to what it would have been in pre-COVID times, and volumes are already exceeded. So to understand in next year, as do we see the growth coming back to pre-COVID levels, and has our deal convergence now in back to what they used to be? And so thirdly, so we have in current quarter done some investments regarding sales and delivery. So for next year, what will be the some of the specific areas with regards to our investment, and how do we like expect the margin to be, as some of the one-offs which were there in this year, like lower travel and some of the other expenses which should come back in next year as well. That's from my side for now.
Hardik, thank you. And there are a lot many questions. Let me try to answer them one by one. On the Q3, as you look at what we have on the EBITDA and the PAT for on a Y-on-Y basis for Q3, the EBITDA grew by 82%, and our PAT grew by roughly around 48%. And on a quarter to quarter compared to last quarter, the growth was roughly around 64 and 21%. So there was substantial growth on EBITDA on both these things. But of course, for 9 month period, it was much higher with that. Regarding our growth levels for next year, I think this year we have not really gone to our previous growth levels. We are still maintaining a healthy growth in areas like US, India, and APAC, while we have also kind of some amount of deceleration in territories like EMEA. Next year, we hope that by April, we should be in a position that all the international travel can restore to a substantial extent, and we can be in front of clients to pursue the deal momentum for new deals, as well as good mining opportunity in existing accounts. So we should be coming back to our average growth rates, which have been more in the range of 15-20%. So that's where we look at next year. In terms of sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. Please continue.
Yeah. In case of deal convergence, I think there are still challenges because, especially with the customers who have not seen Newgen before, the new logos, what you call purely the relationships we don't have. Still, we don't have enough face time and enough control on those accounts to have. So the conversions are still a challenge. Having said that, hello. Yeah. Having said that, we have maintained a deal. We have in first 9 months we have closed roughly around 50 new logos, and next year we think this should be substantially better as we can be in front of the client because the demand is there. I think the need for our kind of products and the way we are partnering in the new initiatives of low code or digital journeys, we see a strong need out there. So we should be able to build on that. From investment on next quarter, I think as we had announced in the previous quarter that we would be looking at increase of our salary cost because we have gone ahead with increments. We have gone ahead with planning certain recruitments for our next year. We are also building some capacity on the leadership side. We have invested in that. So we'll continue to have some more investments in that. So our costs on the manpower side will be slightly more than this quarter by maybe around 10 crores more than this quarter. But also Q4 is a larger quarter for us on the revenue side compared to Q3. So we should be still able to protect and expand margins on that trend. I hope I covered all 3 questions.
Sure, sir. Just adding on to that. So other expenses have reduced quite a bit in Q3. So just wanted to, in previous quarter, it was on a similar revenue basis, it was around 26%. This quarter, it is around 18%. So just wanted to see if there are any savings which we would have done, which can come back from next quarter.
No, I think, on all other expense sides, so, the travel still remains a challenge. So the benefits of travel would be the same. The only difference would be that we'll have higher manpower cost. All other expenses would remain on the similar track. So there won't be. But on the margin side, we hope to have a higher revenue, as well as we hope to get better margins in terms of because we won't have the cost of one-time tax adjustment which we did. That will improve our PAT margins.
Sure, sir. That's it from us. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one now. The next question is from the line of Piyush Chadda from Serendipity Software. Please go ahead.
An opportunity. Just wanted to clarify, could we look for year-on-year growth in the fourth quarter of this financial year?
Yeah, we would look at a single-digit growth in the fourth quarter.
So in the fourth quarter. Also, one request. A lot of IT companies tend to give constant currency growth numbers, etc. Could we provide some of those numbers, or do we already do that? I couldn't find them in the presentation.
No, we don't generally provide that because the numbers have not been, in terms of that, has not been a major impact in our. But I think on the constant currency, I can share you, we are roughly around 1% down on the constant currency, while we are roughly around 0.5% up on the INR.
Okay. Thanks a lot. That helps. I mean, as you grow more global, that information becomes increasingly more valuable. But
We'll try to get it into the presentation in time onwards.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and one now. The next question is from the line of Ashok Kumar, retail investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, am I audible now?
Sir, if you could speak a little louder, please.
Yeah, sure. Is this good enough to continue the question? Yeah.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So first of all, congratulations on good set of numbers, and also, the maintaining the previous year's sales momentum. My question is, I've got two parts of it. So one is majorly on the cost rationalization activities, which we have taken because of the current challenging situations. So if I understand correctly, overall for the 9-month period, we have saved almost 69 crores in terms of the cost. I mean the overall cost compared to the previous year numbers of the 9 months period. So I just want to understand, out of the 69 crores of cost rationalization saving which has happened, how much will be sustainable going forward? That's my first part of the question. And second part, in terms of the revenue growth for the next year, I think it has been answered already. But how about the overall industry situation in terms of our products and demand coming back to the previous levels of 15 to 20% growth going ahead? And maybe if you can give some color on the Q4 growth, that would be really helpful.
Okay, thanks Ashok. I'll try to answer your questions. So on the cost rationalization, the predominant cost rationalization has been across all heads. But for us as a company, because a lot of our costs are around international travel, so there has been a substantial head of international travel. What we see that as a large part of that in terms of our sales travels would come back, but on the service delivery travel, there is going to be a natural optimization because the pattern of work has changed, so there may not be the need of that kind of a travel. But to really put a number on that may be a very difficult job right now. So some part of these cost rationalizations are there permanent in business, but some will come back to as the business and the sales momentum grows. We would be able to, come back to that. On the employee benefit cost, I think our costs will come back to the normal level. We don't think anything. In fact, they will go up as we start growing as a company, and we'll keep on adding people on that. And so broadly, I think we would still rely on our sales, the top line growth number. And that's what we think that over next year and part of this quarter, I think we should start with that. And over next year, we can come back to the regular momentum. That's what. On the Q4 side, generally our Q4s have been larger quarters compared to Q1, Q2, Q3. We do expect that this year to be the same, and we do expect to, clock some kind of a growth over the previous number. But it will be very difficult to really put a number. We are looking at a single-digit growth, and then next year we can go for a larger growth momentum. But I think there are still many variables in that. It will depend on the whole COVID situation, Europe opening up, how much of US travel can happen. So there are variables. It will be very difficult to estimate. But the demand on the demand side, as you understand, I think there's a demand for the whole digital. People are unable to operate in certain areas where they have not done automation. We are great partners to automate both internal systems as well as launch the new services around. And that's what we have done in a lot of new customers as well as existing customers. So we do see demand, but convergence will also need a lot of stability of other factors.
Sure.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, sir. Really not interested in getting the number for Q4, as we understand there are a lot of variables around that. But if I understand correctly, there are some cost rationalization activities which are permanent in nature. Can we understand those are significant number, or you see that as a non-significant in terms of our overall cost rationalization activity?
See, the way I would look at it, for a year which was like a flat year or a small growth year, you will see substantial cost margin improvements, because generally you will not be spending aggressively on sales and marketing and other variable costs for growth. But on a growth year, which will be like a 15-20% growth year, our costs will come back to the normal level, because we need to not only invest for that year's growth, also for subsequent year's growth. So on the larger time, we see a minor cost structures to improve over a larger time frame, but to come back to the similar cost level before.
Sure. Thank you very much, sir. I'll come back in the queue. Okay.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Akshat Agarwal from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot for the opportunity. So I had a follow-up on your remarks earlier. You mentioned that your growth outlook is primarily dependent on travel opening up. So is your new logo wins. And as far as I understand, some of the support revenues decline is also because of the on-site-outside mix changing. So if we were to operate in a scenario where things don't open up for the next 6 to 9 months, what kind of growth can we expect from the business? That's my first question. And I have another question on the normalized margins. So given that there has been a structural reset in the margins upwards over the past 3 quarters, how should one think about margins going forward?
Okay, thanks, Akshat.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Akshat. So you're absolutely right. Our long-term growth of coming back to 20 or higher number is entirely dependent on 2 things, which is one is predominantly the new logo acquisition. And we do think that new logo acquisitions are dependent on travel, because for us, these are enterprise sales, long-term relationships. So there is some amount of face time. So, we have done well this year, but I think to bring in the momentum with the travel would be an important part of that. There's also a part of that is when we go into newer implementation, there's a need to travel, there's a need to support these customers on site. There is more on-site component of the work. That's where the support revenue got impacted, and that can come back. So if we say that, the whole world is again shut for 6 to 9 months, I think we will continue to still gain momentum as we have gained in Q2 to Q3 to Q4. So we're still looking at single-digit growths that we can push. But we think it may be difficult to push up to a 20% growth rate on that number. So we'll still look at healthy single-digit growth rates in the current scenario, because the demand out there is quite strong. On the margin front, we have always explained that being a product company, we can easily look at overall at the EBITDA level of roughly around 24-25% and come to a PAT margins of 19 to 20%. I think we have, that's quite possible, and I think we're near that at the end of the year, and we can maintain those levels.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Venkata Karna, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. My question is,
sorry to interrupt. Sir, we would request you to please speak a little louder, please.
Yeah, am I audible now?
No, sir, you're still not very clear.
Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you can go ahead, please.
Yeah. I have 2 questions, and thank you for the opportunity. First question is, what is the percentage of annuity recurring revenues in this current quarter? And then second question is, what are the entry barriers for the competitors to get into our product space? Thank you.
Thank you, Venkata, for the questions. Let me check the number. Our annuity is around 60%. Dipti, am I right? So 60% of our revenue is our annuity revenue, which has three streams: our regular ATS and AMCs, our SaaS, and our continuous support for these clients. So that's roughly around 60. See, entry barriers for every we are in a software product company which are already playing in a very niche area of our anything to do with content, business processes, low code. So this is a very unique area. We have been in this market for 20 years. We have a kind of a history of proving ourselves, and in different markets and different verticals, we have gained in terms of our install base, our domain knowledge, and other things. So entry barriers are for any product companies to compete in a product space is typically there's a long-term credibility issue that you got to be in that ecosystem for 15, 20 years. And you can see that from any of my competition name is a guy who has been invested in these product spaces for at least 20 years. So we have established ourselves as global brand. We are in top 9, 10 brands in our product spaces, and that's how we play. And depending on the domain and country, we have different strengths we can play. But broadly, our philosophy has been, as you know, this as our brand said, one world, one plex, enabling people to work across the globe, providing them systems and what you call software to connect disparate people and systems together. And finally, we are very good in what we do, and that's where we compete. For us, any new guy, there is a huge entry barrier because the product area is a credibility issue. You need to establish yourself. Enterprises don't buy products which have been born yesterday. They take time to evaluate them. Also, these installations are typically lifelong installations. So anywhere I sell software, these customers end up using it for 10, 15, 20 years. So that's the kind of entry barrier we have.
Okay. Thank you. And one more question is in general, in Q4, what would be the percentage of annuity in general?
I think we will be at similar numbers.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. We would request the participants to please press star and 1 to ask a question. The next question is from the line of Hardik Sangani from ICICI Securities. Please go ahead. Hardik, your line is in talk mode. You can go ahead, please.
Hi, now am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi again. Sir, with respect to the GSI strategy which we have, so lately all these GSI have been winning large transformation deals where they are modernizing their applications and all that. So do we see any increased scope or an increased traction in those parts of work? And secondly, in light of the current digital transformation, which anyways other enterprises are doing, a lot of work has been modernized or digitized like RPA and all those fields. So do we have a specific way or a specific industry, for example, manufacturing, insurance or IT BPO, where we see an extra leg of growth which we can capture?
Yeah, thanks, Hardik. So GSI is a very prominent strategy for us to grow at a substantial level over next 2-3 years. And we have already an established story with most of our GSIs like Infees and TCS. We have worked and we have already over last 1 or 2 years got substantial wins from them. I think now is the time we have really invested in that. We have created a sales structure to support it, a complete enablement structure. We have invested over this year to that. And we are working now with at least top 3 to 4 GSIs globally across to look at how do we build these funnels. And we have good stories of modernizing, part of their new modernization view. And some of those wins, we have been a part of their story out there. So that's a large part of our growth story. We think that's where we can work on. On the areas of digital analytics, RPA, I think we are building those capabilities in the product. We have rolled out those for multiple customers. And certain areas like banking or enterprise are our core focus area. They're very strong in banking, but with the GSIs, we're also focusing on especially Fortune 2000 enterprise customers. And that's where we are going to focus right now. On our core verticals, we have been strong in government, insurance, banking, and shared services. We are right now seeing that we'll consolidate on those 4 core verticals, and through system integrators, we'll concentrate on other verticals. That's our core strategy right now.
Sure. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Akshat Agarwal from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity again. I have a couple of questions. Firstly, so could you just help us understand what's driven the sharp drop in the gross debtor days? It's from a level of 180 over 3 quarters back. It's close to 120 now. And I initially thought that it would be because the share of government in the overall revenues has come off, but actually it's gone up. So what's driving this? That's my first question. Secondly, what has driven the sharp fall in the revenues from shared services segment? Those would be 2 questions.
So, Akshat, I'm very sorry, I can't. So, is the first question related to the DSO, you're saying?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll answer because then I'll please repeat the second question. So, on the DSO front, we have, when we, over 2 years back, we had promised to the market that this was a part of function of certain geographies we operate as well as certain internal business practices. So we have tightened our whole contracting. We have really gone very aggressive on the way we evaluated deals and really pushed our internal structures to make sure that our collections and revenue realization practices are very, very strong. So as a part of that process, we have reflected. Now it doesn't matter whether we are going to be in the government segment or which territory. We will continuously improvement in these areas. So this is a structural change which is across all areas of operation we have done so that we bring the DSO back to the normal, which is a committed 120 level. So from here also, there may be a quarter variation because of the variation in the quarter revenues, but over a larger period, we'll still see this significantly coming down over next 2 years, 3 years. So that was about DSO. Does that answer what you asked?
Yeah, it does. Thanks. My second question was on the drop in the BPO/IT revenue, the shared services revenue this quarter.
Yeah, so there's nothing specific to that. I think our ability to service larger customers like banks, insurance was high. Their investment on the digital side is growing right now. They got to service their customers. While on BPO IT side, we could not make a lot of new deals eventually, and the mining potential in that kind of a segment is limited. So we are relying on the BPO and IT growth on new logos predominantly. So that's why there is a decline. But these declines are still, transient. Two large deals in any of these changes these numbers. So we don't see them as very permanent. I think the bases are quite still small right now to have very permanent shifts on number, to read too much. But what is more significant that there is the banking and the insurance are still growing for us. And that you will see in the overall pie of the revenue, they're still growing.
Understood. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Puneet Saraugi from Hillfort Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I just had a couple of questions. One, on the product side, sales side, when you sort of think about the key obstacles in making a sale, what would those top 2, 3 things be? And perhaps a related question is, when you think about sort of internal metrics to think about whether the client satisfaction levels are high or not, what numbers do you look at? Is it renewal rates? Is it conversion rates? I'm just trying to figure out how to think about this product side business in a better way.
See, on the product side, I think every product has got huge coverage. So like the same is true for us. And so what happens in certain verticals, you end up becoming very strong depending on the use cases you handle. And the challenges which we'll have on the product side are kind of the next level opportunities which we are going. So like some of the challenges for us that now we are going to sell through GSIs to a large extent. So we're looking at what the GSIs would expect from a product in terms of how they can use it, how they can implement it well, how they can manage their larger customers. Similarly, in certain markets, they may have different expectations of integrations or sitting in ecosystems which may be very different than the ecosystems which we have previously. That could become in core banking or ERP systems. So some of our challenges, predominant challenges would be around upgrading these areas in the product, making products more user-friendly to people, making them more user-friendly to sit in ecosystems. And that's what we are working continuously on that. On the matrices to understand customers. So, we have a third-party customer satisfaction survey which we do every year. It does across various dimensions about right from the user group to the decision makers. And that's where we look at various aspects of our business, right from product to service delivery to our engagement and all the way up to the billing and how we deal with the customers. So that's one input for us. The other input is typically we track in terms of our larger customers, which do give us annuity of more than 50 lakhs, their retention rates, because that's very essential for that. So out there we are able to have 97% retention rates for all those customers at that level. So these are broad two parameters by which we look at it. Puneet, does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Thank you.
I didn't. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. A reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 now. The next question is from the line of Piyush Chadha from Serendipity Software. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. Once again, I just wanted to learn a little bit as to where does our product sit? Do we have business logic as part of the product, or is it merely in the infrastructure layer and the business logic is either the DSI or the user's responsibility?
So predominantly, I think there are multiple categories of product. We come in a category which is called enterprise content management and business process management, and lately getting pushed towards low code. These are products which are bought as infrastructure by enterprises because they have plans to use these products across their business lines and business operations. So a lot of the domain or the business logic is built over that, and it's a different way of doing things over a period of time. These spaces are roughly around a $20 billion market in these product categories, which is expanding with low code to a much larger number. So there is a recognition around these product categories, and I think there are enough coverages from industry analysts like Gartners and Forresters of the world who track these categories of enterprise content management, business process management, and low code, and they do eventually evaluate all the products. And we have been in that space for end customers, they buy these platforms for multiple uses. Sometimes they can buy it for a tactical use to start with, but the whole idea is that they will roll it out around various processes. So the example would be in a bank, our platform could be used to transform their digital lending, because we would sit somewhere in between their customers and their internal systems and orchestrate their work. Same could be in insurance, it could be around claims, policy servicing. In a BPO, it could be around processes which they are outsourcing. It could be in FN financial processes. In government, it could be around citizen services. So the use cases are multiple, but predominantly we are typically an infrastructure to orchestrate systems, people, processes through a very differentiated technology of building systems for change and building them fast.
I appreciate that. Thank you for this. This is valuable. So a key component of revenue growth should then be mining of existing logos, because as you expand the number of licenses sold to a logo, your revenue should go up.
Yes, you're right. So there are two things. So one is that in an enterprise, we have a play of reaching. Traditionally, our entry levels could be anywhere between $100,000 to $200,000. Now, over the time, the larger accounts can have grown up to an annuity of $1 million, $2 million. That's the expansion. So sometimes it takes 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year to do that. But that's the predominant growth, one area. But for any product company, since we are clearly specialized in an area, we need to have more logos to make that sale.
Sure.
Both are growth drivers. New logo acquisition, because for future expansion, but also, so we do get almost 40% of our license revenue comes from our existing logos.
From the existing logos. And do we have an annuity-based license policy, or is it like a one-time upfront payment?
So I think annuity, we have, I think the markets like US and Europe are more receptive to annuity and cloud subscription-based pricing, while some of the traditional markets in EMEA and APAC. So we have both the models. Most of the customers who are coming in new market territories like US, Europe, Australia will be based on annuity. And some of these existing customers in these areas will also shift over a period of time. So right now we operate on both models.
Fair enough. Just a suggestion, we've seen similar infrastructure layer companies do extremely well through creating sort of quasi centers of excellence that demonstrate the use cases of their products in the top tier, the best clients. That's been an effective way of selling products that sit between core infrastructure and business app logic. Are we putting these in place too?
We have a lot of infrastructure too, but we right now demonstrate it to the end clients when there is an opportunity and when clients want to discover that. So we have all these systems available on cloud for people to try it out. Our solutions guys to demonstrate that.
Fair enough. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nikunj Mittal, an individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi. So I have a couple of questions. The first is surrounding the patents that we have applied for and received. Could you shed some light on how this technology expertise gives us as an edge and what the patents are about? Something more on the technological front on this line would help, a deeper understanding of that. And the second is about the foreign exchange fluctuation in this quarter and also your general hedging strategy regarding foreign exchange receivables. So these are my two questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikunj. So on the patents, I think the best would be to probably get into the patent. You can get on the site and look at all the patents. So predominantly what happens in product companies, the core technology components which are proprietary to us, we protect them through patents. And these patents don't have any direct commercial relation as of now, but over a longer period of time, you're able to protect your interests. That's the whole idea. So we are going and patenting things which are very critical to our products and technology. Imaging is one forte we have. Processing of information is another where. So most of our patents will be in that area, what we apply. On the foreign exchange, we have some amount of natural hedging through expenses which we have in foreign currency, and then there's a part of what we call PCFC, packing credit, export packing credit, which we keep on revolving. So those are two strategies. And lately we have also started with some amount of hedging, and but with these we are able to manage around 70% of our exposure.
Okay, so there was some big fluctuation in this quarter regarding the foreign exchange. What was that all about?
No, I don't think there was. So could you explain? Tell me what are you referring to out here?
I mean, in terms of the run rate we've had for the net figure that came down on the profit and loss, the effect was there because of hit on the foreign exchange front, if I remember correctly.
It was on effect of a tax. So we had a dispute going on with tax authorities since 2015 around withholding tax. And,
okay.
And that was, through this Vivad and Vishwas, our lawyers told us to settle it. It would be a better time to settle, and we settled that.
Got it. And just one last question as a follow-up on my previous one. So this whole digitization documentation business is pretty much a commoditized business, and it's been there for, as you said, over more than a couple of decades. So, I mean, these patents or the technological know-how you're talking about, which is giving us an edge. I'm not understanding that part. I did visit the website, but I couldn't get as to where that edge lies. If you can just deep dive a little bit on the technological side of it.
See, like other question is like database has been there for 20 years. But still people buy an SQL and Oracle server, but what they buy and use it for, those needs have changed. Similarly, in our areas of content management, business process management, similarly, there are shifts that are happening. The way consumers are consuming the technology has changed. A lot of things is to do with analytics these days. A lot of things are to do with low-code technology in our platforms. So there's a shift around that, and that's what we are able to protect through patents. That's what we are able to invest in building those technologies. So though the area we operate right now, predominantly where our use cases are driven, are around digital low-code initiatives, where enterprises are having strategic goals and they want those things to be rolled out in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, mission critical applications. And that's we have a great set of tools and technologies by which they can build them rather than a traditional way, where they would take 9 months or 1 year or 2 years to do. Now, to do that, there are a lot of underlying products and technologies which we have. That could be the products in capture and origination systems. It could be in analytics and processing. Then it's about content store. It's about orchestration. So these stacks are very, very wide. So probably, if you can look at or if you can contact our investor, they can give you a lot of material about what Gartner and Forrester, how they define that area, where are the opportunity areas. Because that's my play. That would be a better way to explain that.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. As that was the last question, I now hand the conference over to the management for closing comments.
Thank you so much for joining us for the call. For any further questions, you can connect to me or can look at the website for further details. I wish everyone a happy new year once again. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. On behalf of ICICI Securities Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.